Alright guys, so we have a 30-minute game on the board with an opponent rated just under 1000, so this is going to be a perfect opportunity to test out some, look out for common mistakes that players around 1000 will make to help you to avoid them making the same mistakes in your own games. Okay, we have my opponent's played d4 and then e4. And I'm going to play the black line, which is what I normally play against d4, but with just slightly different move order. Hopefully he's going to advance the d pawn now to d5. In fact, if he captures and I recapture, then he can take my queen, so there's a reason why we play this knight to there first. Okay, alright, let's do that. So he can now take my queen, force my king to capture. So I've lost castling rights. It's going to level out the game a little bit. I like to just mix up the opening moves in these games a little. So he's brought out his knight to f3 to attack my pawn. I'm defending with this knight, and then he's come out with a pin on that knight, which is perfectly good. Okay, so I'm going to defend the pawn a second time by bringing my bishop out here. And he may capture and make me double and isolate my pawns now, which puts me at a further disadvantage. What's he going to do? Still in the first minute of the game. This is actually an unrated game, so we can relax and not be too concerned about the outcome. Okay, interesting move. I'm liking this play so far. So he's attacking the f7 pawn with the obvious threat of fork on the king and the rook. So let's defend that. I could bring my bishop out to there, but then if knight takes bishop and pawn takes and bishop takes there and pawn takes, I'm going to have two pairs of isolated and doubled up pawns. So I'm thinking right now that that is a better approach. I'm just going to move my king. My king's already been forced to move anyway, so I'm not losing castling rights. Plus it means that the knight is no longer pinned. So now I might be able to move my knight, say, to there and attack the bishop and also attack c2 myself. This pawn can't move. So really the move that he should play would be bishop back to d3, where it's not attacked itself. I mean, it is defended by the knight, but material is actually equal right now. Okay, right, he's found an alternative route, which is fine. So I do now have the opportunity maybe of trapping that bishop. I'm going to try it. I think this is okay. So the threat is obviously b5. Oh, you can go to there, yeah. So now I could capture. Pawns defended twice, bishops defended only by pawns. I think I like the idea of capturing. The reason is that we have the knight and the bishop now gazing down at f7. I mean, my knight's pretty good there, but that bishop is worrying. I could play again bishop to here, but if he captures, I suppose I could capture with a knight. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. So let's think about that. Bishop to here. Whatever captures, I've got knight captures. Then he could still capture, but then I can recapture with the king. Or I can just grab the bishop. Grab the bishop. Let's say he captures with the a pawn. I can always just push this pawn at some point. I think that's kind of simpler. Let's double his pawns rather than risk doubling mine. Okay, now h6 seems logical. The knight can't go here, can't go here. So it'd have to retreat to one of these two squares. There's two defenders still on there. What's undefended? That's undefended. That's defended once. So this suggests that maybe if I can somehow bring my light squared bishop onto this diagonal, I could attack both of these. Because that's currently defended twice, but I can kick the knight. Let's kick the knight. Okay, let's move back to f3. Natural square. It defends h2, that's good. So black now has only a dark square bishop on the board. So I'm going, at this point in the game, I want to put my pawns on dark squares, because what that does is it blocks off a lot of the board for that bishop, right? So that bishop now cannot really go to any of these. Well, it can go to these. No, we'll see. Okay. Defended once. I think just push. Push there means that these squares are now out for that bishop. That bishop is running out of places it can go. It's literally got these 4 squares on the board, right? That is not a worry. So you see now also the side effects of that is because I still have both bishops on the board. With my pawns on dark squares, my bishop has a lot of scope. Now one thing we could do would be to put the bishop on g4, which pins this knight against the rook, and then if I do capture the knight, the only piece that can recapture is the g2 pawn, and that would open up the king. So that's not necessarily a bad idea. Still one defender on there. I'm hesitant to push this pawn, however, because I don't really want this knight coming in. I don't want it coming into here or here. Another idea is bishop to there, attacking this rook. That will then just cause the rook to go to e1. Not much benefit of that. I think that's a very half-hearted attempt at an attack. So we put the bishop on here, pin the knight, reduce white's options. So now this bishop has no way to progress up the board, and this knight really cannot move. It can't capture with check, for example. So yeah, that knight's pretty much stuck. This knight again can't really progress forwards. It can go to here, but then it's a knight on the rim, looking dim. So now looking at files. There's a completely open file here on D. So my thought is, okay, so now I'm going to bring, remember we said it would be great to put the bishop on this diagonal here. So now I'm going to retreat my bishop here, then it might come to g6, and then we've got 2 attackers and only 1 defender on this pawn, the e4 pawn, which could become a target. Aside from that, I'm keen to move my, okay, so let's move that straight away. There's no point hanging around with that. Okay, pawn has been pushed. I don't want it to capture there. That actually removes the square from the knight. That was the square I was more concerned about. This one, well, maybe not so, because if he comes in there, I can capture with my knight. That's not too bad. So does he notice? Is he counting his attackers and defenders? This is a key area. This is something that very strong players do without thinking. It's something that beginners have to do consciously. You have to look at the board, okay, what's on the board? What's not defended? What's under defended? You literally have to count attackers and defenders. Okay, so what he's done is he's actually removed the defender of that piece. So I'm going to go in, I think, with the bishop. We've got an option here. I think bishop, because bishop means that it also attacks this pawn on c2 and this knight here. The option of attacking with the knight, nah, there's no benefit. I'm going to capture with a bishop with 2 threats. So now I'm 1 pawn up. Now, there's no reason I can think of why I shouldn't just grab that pawn, hit the rook's going to have to move, and then I can come back. Well, I can't come back to this square. I could do. So which is better, grab a pawn or grab a knight? I'm going to grab the pawn, and the reason is, looking at my pawns, right, my dark squared bishop is very, very poor. My light squared bishop, because of the way the pawns are, is very, very strong. Ah, now I missed that, but he also missed this. So what he should have done in that situation is taken the piece, is hovered with the piece. Let's just go back. Okay, so I'm going to swap the board round. Okay, so he was thinking, he can see this. He can see, oh, my knight can go to here, and I've got a fork, right? What you need to do before you do that is go, right, I've still got my finger on the mouse button. Okay, is there anything stupid about this? Look at the board, right, and go, oh no, that bishop is still on that diagonal. I'm going to come back and change my mind, all right? So just a few tips there for beginners. Yeah, pick up on it. But that hovering, that sanity check will make a massive, I think it's worth 200 points in your rating. I really, really do. If you can get into the habit of doing that, okay, and breathe, right? It's a 30-minute game. You've got time to take a breath. Is there anything stupid? Yes, there is. Okay, let's come back and think again, right? So, there you go. Hope it's been useful for you. Little quick demo. See you later.